They called him the Ghost of Grand Avenue. No one really knew where he came from or how long he'd been around, but he was always there, bundled in layers of mismatched clothing, a faded beanie pulled low over his brow, and a scruffy beard that masked most of his face. His name, or at least the name he gave, was Sam. To the world, Sam was just another homeless man, tucked between cardboard and concrete in the corner of a bustling city. People passed by him every day, businessmen in tailored suits, college kids with earbuds and coffee cups, tourists snapping selfies with towering buildings. Some offered a coin. Most didn't even look. But what no one knew, what not a single soul suspected, was that Sam was not who he appeared to be. In reality, Sam was Samuel Whitmore, the reclusive billionaire heir to the Whitmore legacy, one of the wealthiest families in the country. At 35 years old, he owned real estate across 3 continents, had shares in half a dozen Fortune 500 companies, and lived, when not in disguise, in a penthouse that touched the sky. So why was he pretending to be homeless? Well, that story begins not with money, but with loneliness. Samuel had everything. Or at least, everything money could buy. He had cars, he had influence, he had connections to people whose names shook markets. But the one thing he didn't have, the thing that gnawed at him every night, was someone who loved him for him. You see, Samuel had grown weary of the fake smiles and surface-level friendships. Every date he went on ended the same way, laughter, flirting, and then, when they found out who he really was, $signs in their eyes. It wasn't long before he stopped trusting people altogether. Until one day, standing at his floor-to-ceiling windows looking down at the city below, he had an idea. What if, he said aloud to no one, I take all of this away? Not permanently. Just long enough to find someone real. Someone who saw past appearances and into the soul beneath. A wild, foolish idea. But Samuel wasn't afraid of foolish. Within a week, he had assembled a small, trusted team, his head of security, his childhood friend and lawyer, and his discreet personal assistant. They helped him create a new identity. They scouted locations where he could safely blend in. They coached him on how to survive without drawing attention, and where not to go. Then, one chilly morning in early spring, Samuel Whitmore vanished from the public eye. And Sam, the quiet beggar on Grand Avenue, appeared in his place. At first, it was harder than he thought. The cold seeped into his bones at night. The concrete was unforgiving, even with layers of cardboard. The food was, well, it wasn't the 5-star cuisine he was used to. People treated him like he was invisible. Or worse, like he was nothing. It shook him. But it also opened his eyes. He saw the city in a way he never had before. He watched people not as a man of wealth, but as someone they ignored. And occasionally, someone would surprise him. A teenager handing out sandwiches. A girl leaving a coffee on the ledge near his spot. A woman who gave him her scarf when the wind turned brutal. But no one lingered. No one asked him his name. Until her. It was late afternoon when she first appeared. She had a brown ponytail, a tote bag filled with books, and a kind of calm that stood out in the city's rush. She didn't look like much, in fact, she looked like she was in a hurry herself. But then she stopped right in front of him. You okay? She asked. It took him a second to realize she was talking to him. I'm fine, he mumbled, looking down. She frowned. You don't look fine. And before he could protest, she handed him a paper bag with a warm sandwich inside. No one should be hungry, she said. My name's Lily. He stared at her, confused. Most people gave food and walked away. She stayed. Not long, just enough to smile, enough to ask his name. He hesitated, then muttered, Sam. Nice to meet you, Sam. And then she was gone. It was a small moment. But to Samuel, it was everything. She came back the next day. And the next. Always bringing something, soup, an apple, a joke. Sometimes she'd sit with him for a few minutes, talking about her day. She was a nursing student, working part-time, struggling with bills. But she never talked about what she didn't have. Only what she hoped to give. Samuel found himself looking forward to those few minutes each day. He started watching for her, learning her rhythms. And she never asked for anything in return. Never questioned him, never looked down on him. And, strangely, he started to feel human again. One day, after nearly 2 weeks, she sat beside him and said, "You're not like the others. You're quiet, but you listen. And your hands? They don't look like they've been on the street long." Samuel froze. Was she on to him? "I mean," she continued, "it's none of my business. But if you ever need help, real help, I know someone." She scribbled a name and number on a napkin and placed it gently in his lap. He stared at it after she left. The name wasn't important. What mattered was that she cared enough to offer. That night, for the first time in weeks, Samuel didn't feel cold. Something inside him was warming, slowly, but surely. Still, he couldn't tell her who he really was. Not yet. That would ruin everything. But he made a promise to himself right then and there: if she was the real deal, if she stayed kind even when there was nothing to gain, he'd do something he hadn't done in years. He'd let himself fall. Little did he know, Lily had secrets of her own. And as their worlds began to inch closer, a storm was brewing in the distance, one that would test everything he thought he knew about trust, love, and the price of living 2 lives. This was just the beginning. In part 2, we'll dive deeper into Lily's world, her struggles, her motivations, and the reason why she always stopped for Sam, even when the rest of the world kept walking. Because sometimes, the one hiding the most isn't the billionaire in disguise. It's the girl with the paper bag and the broken heart. Lily Reyes had always been the kind of person who noticed what others missed. It wasn't because she was nosy, quite the opposite. She simply paid attention, especially when it came to people. Growing up in a neighborhood where everyone worked twice as hard for half as much, she'd learned that sometimes the smallest gestures made the biggest difference. Her mother used to say, "Kindness is free, Majida. Give it away like sunshine." Lily lived by that. Even when things were tough, and lately, they were very tough, she never stopped trying to be a light for someone else. That's why, when she first saw Sam, slumped against the brick wall on Grand Avenue with those sad, distant eyes, she didn't keep walking like everyone else. Something about him pulled at her. She didn't know his story. Didn't ask. She just saw a man who looked lost, not just physically, but emotionally. And she knew that feeling too well. Because Lily's life, though held together by grit and caffeine, was quietly falling apart. By day, she was a nursing student on the brink of burnout, racing from lectures to clinical rotations, then to her part-time job at a diner 3 nights a week. She barely slept, barely scraped together enough to cover rent for the tiny apartment she shared with her younger brother, Mateo. Their parents had passed away 5 years ago, a car crash that left Lily with full custody of a grieving 10-year-old and a mountain of responsibility she'd never asked for. But she never complained. She couldn't afford to. Her dream was simple: graduate, get her license, work in pediatrics, and give Mateo the childhood he deserved. But dreams don't pay bills. Which is why, the night before she met Sam, she'd cried herself to sleep staring at an eviction notice taped to the kitchen wall. The next morning, she packed 2 sandwiches. One for her, and one, she didn't know why, for the quiet man she always passed on her walk to the subway. She hadn't even spoken to him before. But that morning, something told her to stop. He looked up with startled eyes when she offered the bag. "You okay?" she'd asked. He said yes, but his voice trembled. She knew he was lying. Over the next 2 weeks, her brief visits to Sam became a kind of ritual. A few minutes stolen from the chaos. They didn't talk much, not at first. But she noticed how he listened, really listened. When she vented about school or work or her latest late-night bus ride, he didn't interrupt. He just nodded, eyes warm, as if every word she said mattered. He never asked for anything. Never hinted at wanting more. That made her trust him. One Thursday afternoon, she plopped down next to him on the sidewalk, exhausted and drained. She had just found out she'd failed a major exam, a rare miss for her, and one that put her scholarship at risk. "I feel like the whole world's leaning on me," she whispered. "And I can't breathe." He didn't speak right away. just reached into his coat and pulled out a tiny, worn marble. Swirled green and blue like the earth. My brother gave me this when we were kids, he said softly. Told me if I held it tight, I'd remember I wasn't carrying the world. Just holding a piece of it for a while. She blinked. It was the first personal thing he'd ever shared. She clutched the marble in her hand, tears stinging her eyes. Thank you, she murmured. He gave her a small, crooked smile. We all need reminding sometimes. She took that marble everywhere after that. Kept it in her pocket during exams, during long shifts, even during arguments with her landlord. It wasn't magic, but it helped. And though she didn't say it out loud, she started looking forward to seeing Sam more than she should have. There was a quiet comfort in his presence, like an old sweater or a familiar song. Meanwhile, Samuel, the man beneath the beard and layers, was falling harder every day. He admired her strength. Her patience. The way she treated people, even strangers, like they mattered. She didn't know he had a private jet or $1 billion portfolio. She just knew he was cold, tired, and maybe a little lonely. And somehow, that was enough for her. But it couldn't go on forever. Because secrets, no matter how carefully kept, have a way of unraveling. One rainy evening, as Lily was leaving her shift at the diner, she spotted Sam standing across the street. That was odd. He usually stayed by his spot near the avenue, especially in bad weather. But this time, he was holding something. A heavy coat. She ran toward him, umbrella in one hand. What are you doing here? She asked, breathless. He hesitated. You looked cold this morning. She stared at him. You walked 20 blocks in the rain to bring me a coat? He looked sheepish. It's not much. But, you've done more for me than anyone ever has. She wanted to say something light, maybe teasing, but her throat closed up. Instead, she reached out and hugged him. It was quick. Awkward. But real. She felt his heart racing. He smelled like the city, wet pavement and coffee. And she felt something shift. That night, Samuel sat in the shelter of a parking garage, staring at the ceiling, wondering how much longer he could keep pretending. Lily was getting closer. She'd soon start asking questions. What if she found out the truth? That he wasn't a homeless man, but a billionaire playing a game? Would she hate him? Or worse, feel betrayed? At the same time, Lily lay awake in her apartment, staring at the marble on her nightstand. Why did she feel safer with Sam than with anyone else? She didn't know his past. Didn't even know his last name. But when she was with him, she felt seen. Like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't carrying the world alone. Neither of them knew it yet, but fate was about to speed things up. Because soon, someone from Samuel's real life would recognize him. And the mask he'd worn so carefully would begin to slip. In part 3, we'll watch what happens when two worlds collide, the billionaires and the girls, and a secret starts to unravel faster than either of them can stop it. Because the truth has a funny way of showing up, just when you're not ready for it. A blurry street shot snapped by a tourist visiting the city, nothing special, just a random Instagram story captioned, *, this city's full of characters. Look at this guy. *. But to someone scrolling through their feed 3 states away, the face beneath the scruffy beard, the weary eyes, and the dirt-smudged jacket triggered something familiar. Cameron Yates nearly dropped his phone when he saw it. He was Samuel Whitmore's former college roommate and still one of the few people who'd ever been close to him. Though they hadn't talked in over a year, Cameron still followed all the occasional gossip about Samuel's business empire. But this? This was no ordinary business move. What the hell are you doing, Sam? He whispered aloud, staring at the photo. It was unmistakable. Even under all that grime and disguise, he could tell. The jawline. The eyes. The posture. That was definitely Samuel. And Cameron knew something no one else did, as Sam had once mentioned wanting to disappear for a while. Test if people could love him without his name or his net worth. It sounded like a fantasy at the time. But now it looked like he'd actually done it. And that meant two things. First, Samuel was taking the idea too far. And second, someone would find out. And when they did, the media would pounce. Cameron knew he had to warn him. Back on Grand Avenue, Samuel, or Sam, as Lily called him, was oblivious to the growing storm. All he could think about was the way Lily had hugged him. It was brief. But it lingered. Her warmth. The way she'd held on just a second longer than expected. The softness in her voice when she'd said, "You're not as invisible as you think." He hadn't felt that in years. The next morning, she brought him coffee, her favorite blend from the bodega on 4th. "I figured you needed a good start today," she said, setting it beside him. He chuckled. "I can't repay you for all this." "I'm not keeping score," she said, smiling. And then, for the first time, they talked about dreams. Not money. Not jobs. Just dreams. Lily admitted she wanted to open a clinic one day, a place where people without insurance could walk in without fear or debt. "Healthcare shouldn't be a luxury," she said. "Everyone deserves to be cared for." Sam was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That's beautiful. And you'll do it." She laughed. "You're the first person who said that and actually meant it." He meant it more than she could ever know. But even as the bond between them deepened, the clock was ticking. That afternoon, Samuel's assistant, Monica, showed up at the safe house he used once a week to shower and check messages. She looked tense. "You've been spotted," she said, handing him a printout. He scanned the photo. "Damn. It's going viral on a few local forums. No one's confirmed your identity yet, but if people keep digging." He nodded. "Then it's over. You need to come back," she said firmly. "Before it gets messy." But Samuel hesitated. "What if I'm close?" he asked. "What if she's the one?" Monica sighed. "And what happens when she finds out you lied to her face? That you made her fall for someone who doesn't exist?" Samuel looked away. "I don't know. But deep down, he did. It would break her. Still, he couldn't bring himself to end it. Not yet. Not when things were just beginning to feel real. Meanwhile, Lily was dealing with her own dilemma. Matteo, her younger brother, had been suspended from school for fighting. He'd punched a kid who called their family pathetic. It wasn't the first incident, and Lily was starting to worry. "You can't solve problems with fists," she told him that night. "He was talking about Mom," Matteo muttered. "I know. But you still have to be better than that." They sat in silence for a while, both of them tired. The weight of adulthood pressed harder than ever. But the next day, something happened. Sam surprised her. He'd made a bracelet woven out of twine and a few beads he'd found. Nothing fancy. But it had a charm in the center shaped like a tiny heart. "For Matteo," he said. "You said he likes handmade stuff, right?" Lily was speechless. She blinked hard, then took the bracelet. "He'll love it," she whispered. And he did. That night, Matteo asked, "Is Sam your boyfriend?" Lily laughed. "No. He's just a friend. Seems like he really cares about you." She paused. "Yeah," she said softly. "I think he does." And for the first time in years, she let herself imagine a future with someone by her side, someone not because of what she could offer, but because of who she was. But happiness, as always, didn't come without a price. The next day, a black SUV pulled up near the alley where Sam usually stayed. Cameron stepped out, looking around until he spotted him. Sam's eyes widened. "Cam?" Cameron held up a hand. "Don't freak out. I'm just here to talk." They found a quiet corner away from street noise. "Why are you doing this, man?" Cameron asked. "Do you know how dangerous this is? Do you know how easy it would be for someone to recognize you? There are rumors already." Sam looked tired. "I had to know," he said. If someone could love me without all the noise. Cameron didn't judge. He just nodded. So? Did you find her? Sam's silence said everything. You realize you're going to hurt her, right? I know, he whispered. Cameron reached into his coat. Then you'd better decide soon. Because this? He held up another printout, one with a headline that read, "Could the ghost of Grand Avenue be missing billionaire Whitmore? This is coming. And when it does, you'll have no place left to hide." That night, Sam sat in his corner, staring up at the sky. Lily hadn't shown up. It was the first time in 2 weeks. Had something happened? Or was fate giving him space to choose? Tell her the truth and risk losing her. Or walk away and wonder for the rest of his life what might have been. In Part 4, choices must be made. Secrets will start to surface. And a friendship on the brink of something deeper will face its first true test. Because love built on a lie will always come at a cost. Samuel sat alone, tucked beneath his usual corner of the alley, but the quiet no longer brought him peace. The city, once a blur of faces and footsteps, now pressed in on him like a secret waiting to explode. His thoughts wouldn't stop racing. He had two choices. Tell Lily the truth, and possibly destroy the fragile, beautiful thing they'd begun. Or disappear again, this time for good, leaving her with only questions and a lie. Neither felt right. But time wasn't on his side anymore. That viral post had started to gain traction. Cameron had warned him, someone would put the pieces together soon, and when they did, everything would come crashing down, not just for Samuel, but for Lily too. He couldn't protect her from that. Unless he faced it first. The next morning, Lily showed up. She looked different, tired, a little distracted, eyes puffy like she'd cried the night before. You weren't here yesterday, Samuel said gently. I had to take Mateo to the clinic, she replied, rubbing her forehead. He's been having chest pains. Samuel's heart sank. Is he okay? They think it's stress-related, but, she shook her head. I don't know. He's just a kid. He's carrying too much. Samuel reached out, hesitated, then placed a hand on her shoulder. You're doing everything you can, Lily. Her eyes welled up. I don't know if that's enough anymore. They sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, she looked at him. Can I ask you something? He braced himself. Of course. Who are you, Sam? He froze. I mean, you've never really told me anything about yourself, she said. No past. No family. You're smart, kind, and you're not like anyone I've ever met. He swallowed hard. This was it. She continued, I don't care if you've made mistakes. I don't care if you're running from something. But I do care if everything we've shared has been fake. Her words were gentle. But they cut deep. I need to know you're real, she whispered. Samuel took a deep breath. And finally, he told her everything. Not all at once. Just enough to begin. My real name isn't Sam. It's Samuel Whitmore. Her eyebrows furrowed. The Whitmore? He nodded. I'm not homeless. I've been living this life for a few months because I wanted to find someone who'd see me, not my name or my money. She stared at him in stunned silence. I never meant to hurt you, he said quickly. You've been the only real thing in my life for years. I just didn't know how to tell you. Lily stood slowly. So this has all been some kind of experiment? No. No, it started that way. But then I met you, and everything changed. You changed me. She stepped back. I trusted you, she said, her voice trembling. I told you things I've never told anyone. I let you into my world, into Mateo's world, and you were lying the whole time? I wasn't lying. I was hiding. There's a difference. Not to me. Her voice broke. She turned and walked away, leaving him standing alone in the middle of the sidewalk, the early morning crowd moving around him like he wasn't there. Just like before. Only now, it hurt more. He'd found what he was looking for and lost it the moment he became honest. For the next week, he didn't return to Grand Avenue. He didn't go back to his penthouse either. He wandered. Took long walks at night. Slept in a safe house he hadn't visited in years. He turned off his phone, ignored emails, left the world behind. Until Monica found him again. "Lily's in the hospital," she said, standing in the doorway of the apartment. "It's Matteo." He was on his feet before she finished the sentence. At the hospital, he didn't go in right away. He watched through the glass as Lily sat beside Matteo's bed, holding his hand, her shoulders hunched in defeat. She looked smaller than he remembered. Like the weight of the world had finally broken her. Samuel knocked gently on the doorframe. She looked up, her face unreadable. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I came to help," he said. "If you'll let me." She looked at him for a long time. Then, slowly, she nodded. He stepped inside. Matteo was asleep, a tangle of wires and monitors surrounding him. "The doctors think it's anxiety," Lily said softly. "Overload. He needs rest. He needs stability." Samuel sat beside her. "I want to help you both," he said. "Not with money, not unless you want that. But I want to be here. Really here. No lies. No disguises." Lily's eyes shimmered. "Why?" she asked. "After everything?" "Because I love you," he said simply. "And I've never meant anything more in my life." She didn't say anything at first. Then, quietly, "You hurt me." "I know. You broke my trust." "I know. But, you also made me feel seen." She took a shaky breath. "And that part wasn't a lie, was it?" He shook his head. "Not for a second." A long silence passed. Then, she reached into her bag and pulled out a familiar marbled blue and green, a tiny world in her palm. "I carry this with me," she said. "Every day. Even after I found out who you were." Samuel blinked. "Why?" "Because even if your name was fake, that moment wasn't." She turned to him. "I don't know if I can trust you again. Not fully. Not yet. But I don't want to throw it all away." He nodded, overwhelmed with emotion. "That's more than I deserve." She smiled faintly. "Yeah. It is." Over the next month, things changed, slowly, gently, but for the better. Matteo recovered. Samuel quietly paid for the best specialists without telling Lily until she found out and insisted on setting boundaries. He respected them. Lily took her exams again and passed. She graduated. And Samuel was there in the back row, disguised again, this time, only as a man in love. He didn't rush her. He didn't use his wealth to win her over. He showed up. With honesty, with patience, and with time. And eventually, she let him back in. Not because of the money. Not because of the name. But because the man beneath all that, the man who once offered a marble and listened when no one else did, was real. And she loved him, too. 1 year later, Samuel opened a community clinic in the heart of the city, under Lily's name. It offered free care to children and teens, mental health support, and outreach for families in crisis. On the plaque beside the entrance, it simply said, "For those who see the invisible." Because love, at its core, is not about wealth. It's about showing up when no one else does. It's about choosing someone again and again even when it's hard. And in a world full of masks and noise, sometimes, the richest man is the one who finally lets himself be seen.